Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, here's where I want to start. I want to quickly revisit an individual that I've brought up on the show before, and I've suggested, of course, that individuals check out his Telegram channel if people are curious about a number of different things. But it's come to my attention that this individual is quite the grifter and remarkably unprofessional, in particular when on stage and even asked questions by veterans and a number of other things, and then he just yells and shouts. This individual is Derek Johnson. Again, I believe his handle on Telegram is Rattletrap1776. This guy's been making the rounds for quite some time, talking about, of course, a continuity of government and a number of other things. He may be right on a few things, but there's a very specific, I think, pattern of behavior that exists among individuals that sort of give them away. And it's this overall dismissive nature that individuals have. And who knows, maybe I'm guilty of it myself and I'm not even aware of it. But people will just very quickly dismiss an idea or a particular conversation or a tone or a question or whatever it may be, a very large concept, including something that's potentially been debated for a very long time. And they just don't respond, I would say, in a way that would be indicative of somebody who's trying to tell the truth or someone who is really a thinking person. So there's a number of videos that exist on Rumble specifically going after Derek Johnson and showing clips of him and playing audio of him just losing his mind. And again, I've criticized him in the past, a long time ago, regarding his tone with people and talking down to people like they're all fools and you need to know what I know, and if you don't know what I know, then you're not paying attention and all this other shit. It really is beyond strange. So you can make up your own minds regarding him. I don't subscribe to any of his channels. I don't read his stuff. I don't pay attention to him anymore, and I really haven't for quite some time. I bounced over to Telegram a couple of weeks ago to see what he was discussing again regarding plane movements and foreign planes in our own country and foreign military planes in our own country, which apparently is a thing. And that is something that did take place or is consistently taking place. But either way, I just wanted to make mention of that. Again, there's a lot of grifters out there, and there's a lot of people talking down to a lot of people. I mean, I saw footage of him in this room with a lot of, frankly, boomer generation individuals. There were just a lot of elderly individuals, and again, bless their hearts, these individuals that were in this room, they're looking for answers, they're looking for understanding, and he's standing on stage and he's screaming and cursing and shouting at these people. And again, it's as if he's never been on a stage before. That when you give a presentation, that's not how you behave, that's not what you do. And people are looking at him with perplexed looks on their faces, like, why is this guy screaming and shouting? And then I saw another audio clip of him on the Twitter Spaces audio thing with some phone call with a bunch of different people, and he lost his mind. He was screaming and shouting, and there was a 20-year veteran who simply asked him a couple of questions very calmly, and then out of nowhere, he just lost it. So I've seen enough to basically indicate that that the guy's not well. He's certainly misleading people when it comes to his service in the military, among other things. So I'm just going to leave it at that. There's bigger fish to fry. I think there's more important people out there to pay attention to. In fact, here's an individual that I've referenced in the past, and I'm going to bring it up right now. In fact, I will link her Odyssey page in the description below, and this is, I believe, Sabrina Wallace is her name. Synergy Sabrina is her channel on Odyssey, or P Synergy is the actual title. It's absolutely fantastic stuff. She really is taking deep dives into a number of different things, and one of them recently is called Your Digital Twin, or DigiTwin, and it really is, it's interesting stuff. It's, again, the Internet of Things and connecting the Internet to our body and wireless Internet and how it all plays a role, including artificial intelligence and a number of other things. And she bounces through these websites and shows you. She openly shows people This is exactly what's going on. They already have this written out. Agenda 2030 is already in play. It's already happening. And again, it's very thought provoking and it's alarming at the exact same time. Not to mention, you have to ask yourself, why are we not hearing many, if not all, politicians talk about artificial intelligence, wireless internet, wireless capability, the negative health ramifications that all of this has on us, and of course, the long term plans regarding all of this. And she goes through a great deal of it. So I highly recommend, again, giving her channel a watch and bouncing over there on Odyssey and checking it out. Again, I'll link it in the description below so that you can check it out yourself. It's really fascinating stuff. Let me bring this up now. I want to spend just a minute here on all these college university / protests that are taking place again. You know, it's not going away, and unfortunately for them anyway, they're going to have to find something else to do in the next couple of weeks because school's going to be out of session. So I wonder what they're going to do with their useless time that they continue to waste. But I find the hypocrisy with all of this absolutely astounding, as you know, and as I've mentioned before, in particular with the Gateway Pundit and the Hoft brothers and all of their contributors over there. They cannot get their stories straight or their opinions aligned on any of this. They're essentially openly advocating for a lack of freedom of speech in the First Amendment and people's ability to, of course, peacefully protest and a number of other things. The videos that they consistently show on their website are showing police just bum rushing individuals and knocking them to the ground. But the headline, of course, that they show has something to do with violence. It'll have the word violence or mob or these violent protests and this, that, and the other. There's really nothing violent about them. These individuals are standing, they're shouting, they're doing what they're doing as protesters would. They're not burning anything to the ground. And again, the hypocrisy of all of this is that during the whole Black Lives Matter charade in 2020, there were no police officers bum rushing individuals and tackling them to the ground as they're burning buildings to the ground. That wasn't happening. But it's happening here with individuals, again, who are just standing there. Now, unfortunately, there are some police officers who have been attacked, and I'm certain that that's happened. And of course, these individuals then get tackled to the ground and arrested, and, fine, go for it. But again, the Gateway Pundit can't seem to figure out what side to take in all of this. Let me give you an example. Again, there's one particular headline here. It's titled, "Anti-Israeli Mob Shows Up at White House Correspondents' Dinner, Harasses Attendees." Now, wait a minute. Hang on just a second. Are you supporting the White House Correspondents' Dinner with Joe Biden with this headline, or aren't you? Because again, right next to this one is another article making fun of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So again, which is it? Which are you supporting? Are you supporting any of it? Are you against any of it? Well, I mean, what's going on? Again, these protesters are holding up a giant banner that basically says Biden's legacy is genocide, which is true. That's accurate. But they're not, they're not even supporting any of what's being said. Now, there also has to be this. Again, this is so multidimensional, it's bizarre. I'm certain that George Soros is behind a great deal of this. Again, these are not homemade signs that these people are carrying around. There's endless pictures of all of them. They've clearly all been printed off by the same people. They've been provided. This is not free. Same thing with these giant banners. Giant banners like this are not free. They cost money, a great deal of it. And if these are, quote unquote, poor college students, well, they're certainly not the ones paying for it. We also know that there are endless Jewish infiltrators within these protests, and they're the ones that are ramping things up. Those are probably the individuals doing most of the shouting. This is a real thing. I mean, visually, there are actual Jews there, and it's very difficult to not see this. But even so, again, if individuals are shouting at White House Correspondents' Dinner attendees as they walk past in Washington, what's wrong with that? What's the problem? Again, so what if they get in their face and shout at them and say something? I mean, they're behind barriers by and large. And then they track these individuals allegedly from the media right through these crowds, and people are shouting at them. And I mean, so what? It's just, this unruly mob does this and does that. Again, I think everybody's wrong in this whole situation. Everybody's being manipulated. Everybody's being toyed with. That's beyond evident. But again, outlets like the Gateway Pundit just can't seem to figure out which side to pick. And they're trying to toe this particular line that's very hard to actually walk on. I mean, it's quite the tightrope, but I don't know. I mean, they're not getting away with it as far as I'm concerned. It's beyond evident that they're trying to play both sides and just cherry pick particular subjects and points of view to take. So, yeah, again, do you support the White House Correspondents' Dinner? Because you can't, because in the very next article you show, you're making fun of everybody who's there. So, again, which is it? Now, as you might expect, this is actually the much larger problem. And this is a problem, of course, that I've brought up in the show numerous times, which is all of these events are certainly coordinated, and they are coordinated for the effort of making quote-unquote anti-Semitism illegal. Now, anti-Semitism isn't a real word. It's completely made up, and it doesn't exist. But if you criticize anybody who's Jewish, they want to criminalize this. This is the entire goal. This has been the goal since certainly early in the 1900s, if not long before that. In fact, I would go so far as to say this. You talk about a conversation starter or even a conversation ender. I would pose this question to just about anybody who you're having a political conversation with. Ask them the question, do you think it's okay to criminalize anti-Semitism? Should people be fined or go to jail if they criticize someone who happens to be Jewish? You've heard me read a section of a speech that Dr. Goebbels gave, where he openly was talking again about them making inroads, specifically the Bolsheviks and Jews specifically, and certainly the lobby and the media and politicians and a number of other individuals, that they're always making inroads to ultimately criminalize the criticism of anybody who happens to be Jewish or any group who happens to align with Jewish philosophy or ideologies or whatever it may be, and then ultimately make it punishable by death. I've read that quote numerous times before. This is why all of this is happening. And that's, I think, the much larger picture that people have to start to understand, is that our rights are being destroyed, and they're getting even. Outlets like the Gateway Pundit, which again, the Hoff brothers are Jewish, but they're bringing this up on purpose, and they're actually advocating for their own demise in the long run, and they don't even know it. In fact, Josiah Richwine sent this my way, and this is making the rounds now. The ColumbiaSpectre.com is the website, and it's titled, this particular article is titled, Tories Announce Columbia Act to Create Anti-Semitism Monitor, quote-unquote, for select colleges and universities. It says the proposed legislation marks the most recent effort from Congress to target anti-Semitism amid nationwide demonstration. Again, problem, action, reaction, solution. This is all staged. This entire thing is a huge on purpose. This is being done to erode our rights and get people to a point where if you criticize anybody who happens to be Jewish, regardless of the stance you're taking wherever you may be, if you criticize anybody who's Jewish, well, we're going to fine you, arrest you, ticket you, cite you, do whatever we have to do, maybe even send you to jail, and a number of other things in the future. This particular article, of course, was written by a Jewish man, Noah Bernstein, and here's what it says. It says, Representative Richie Torres, or Torres, if I'm saying that right, Democrat from New York, announced on Friday that he plans to introduce a bill that would allow the Department of Education to impose a, quote, third-party anti-Semitism monitor for any institution of higher education that receives federal funding. This right here again should be all the proof that anybody needs to fully understand that it is politicians against us, the people, regardless of your stance on any political issue, okay? In particular regarding this subject, it almost is irrelevant. This is where you're going to see Democrats and Republicans do one of two things. They're either going to be quote unquote bipartisan and support one another in this, or they're going to support it with silence by not getting loud about it. And again, that's all they have to do. All they have to do to support something is actually not even speak out against it, because it's the not speaking out against it and the illegality of all of this, because it's a clear violation of the First Amendment. That right there should show everybody who these individuals actually support. And it's one another, it's not us. It goes on here. It says, Torres coined the legislation, the College Oversight and Legal Updates Mandating Bias Investigations and Accountability Act, or the Columbia Act. So, very clever. He found he picked the word Columbia, but because of Columbia University. And then he decided to use the word as an acronym and then find words that fit all of those letters and then just throw the word act at the end. The guy's a moron. Anyway, it goes on here. It says, quote, as we have seen over the last half a year since October 7th, campus anti-Semitism is at an all-time high, and American universities are not capable of handling it when left to their own devices, Tory said in an announcement. The legislation co-sponsored, here's the bipartisan part, from Representative and Republican out of New York Mike Lawler, said, in response to the ongoing demonstrations at Columbia University that have created an environment that many Jewish students view as hostile to their well-being and safety, quote unquote. Now, I have to revisit this very quickly before I keep reading this article, which I will. It should be evident now that all of this was staged, that every single piece of this was staged, that the flames were being stoked clearly by Jews to rally up the pro-Palestinians, certainly at the college campus level, that entire congressional hearing where basically all the non-Jewish presidents showed up by and large, and they picked of course, these major universities that didn't have a Jewish president. They bring them in, they call them all anti-Semitic, they tell them, are you going to support this or aren't you? Are you going to stand up for Jewish students or aren't you? And blah, blah, blah. You're not going to condone anti-Semitism? What's wrong with you? Elise Stefanik starts crying. And then these presidents go back home, and then the media stays on them as hard as humanly possible to try to get them to resign. And then, of course, they dig up their past and they start saying, well, they're a plagiarist and they're doing this and they're doing that. And now it's arrived at this point where you actually have legislation. Again, it's the alphabet. This is A, B, C, D, E, F. We know what comes next. We know what comes next. We know what comes next. All of this has been done on purpose. All of it. Step by step. The only thing that hasn't happened yet is a Jewish student being shot, or a couple of Jewish students being shot or beaten to death or something along those lines. Once that happens, you'd better believe government's going to get involved. They don't even have to actually be Jewish. They could just be individuals who are dressed up looking like individuals who are Jewish. I mean, who's to say? But again, this entire thing is staged. All of this across the nation is staged. And here's the funniest part. The funny part, I think, is that the vast majority of college campuses aren't even participating in any of this nonsense. Most of the students aren't either. I've got an article a little bit later where, again, Miami University, where I live, they had 15 students engage in a walkout. Ooh, 15. What a show of protest. Don't let things get out of hand with those 15 students. Again, it's completely useless. They actually think that they're participating in something when, in fact, all of them don't know that they're participating in their own erosion of their own rights, and that there are Jewish individuals sprinkled throughout the pro-Palestinian crowd, designed to, again, rally up the troops as much as humanly possible and shake the jar of ants as much as possible. That's what's happening here. And again, what did they replace all of these universities with? Once these presidents were all forced out with the Bolshevik tactics of going after their past and sifting through all of their past writings and a number of other things, because again, they weren't Jewish before, who's the presidents of these universities now? They're all Jewish. They picked Jewish individuals who were either administrators or professors already in those locations. They selected them to be the interim presidents or the actual presidents. And then, just like clockwork, the protests start. Again, this way they can double down on their victimization and their victimhood. Well, I'm a Jewish president and this offends me, and I'm all for any legislation that protects Jewish students, not white students. No, no, no. We're going to keep pushing the anti-white books and the anti-white curriculum as much as humanly possible because nobody cares about white people. But anyway, I'm Jewish and I'm the victim, and that's who I am, so pay attention to me. It's the same move over and over and over again. They just, again, it's frustrating because this can't get more obvious how scripted all of this is and continues to be. I'm going to wrap up this article, though, and it says the following here. It says, since University President Minshew Shafik's April 17th testimony before the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, Columbia has seen week-long demonstrations on and around campus and an increase in reported anti-Semitic incidents, including an alleged assault. Oh my God. Assaults happen all the time on university campuses. All of the time. They never make the news. But my God, if it happens at a protest and it happens to be against somebody who's Jewish, well, heaven forbid. Of course, they have no proof of anything. They just say it in an article, then everybody just blindly believes it. There was an attack on Jewish students. I have yet to see any pro-Palestinian throw a single punch at anybody who's Jewish. I have yet to see that on camera. All these cell phones, you'd think you'd be finding all of these fights. The only fights we're seeing on camera are police bum-rushing individuals and tackling them to the ground. I mean, the Zogbot soldiers are out in force. There's no doubt about that. But don't worry, we also have House Speaker Mike Johnson's support as well. It says Lawler joined House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, and a gaggle of other House Republicans at a Wednesday press conference on Low Steps, where they called on Shafik to step down. There you go. More presidents need to step down now. It says in Torres's proposed bill, the Secretary of Education can appoint a monitor who would publish a quarterly report on the school's efforts to combat anti-Semitism and issue ad hoc policy recommendations to various government leaders. This would also include, as you might expect, online posts or memes that are anti-Semitic. How dare you put that meme on your social media? You're a university student here, and now we're going to kick you out. That's what this is about. That's the direction that they're moving in here. Let's see. It goes on. It says the college or university placed under the Department of Education's increased scrutiny would be responsible for covering any expenses from the monitor's oversight and would lose federal funding for not complying with the Columbia Act's requirements. There you go. Bolshevism. Normalizing Bolshevism. It ends with this quote from Torres. Quote, "This past week's crisis at Columbia is not an isolated incident." Yes, it is. It is the straw that has broken the camel's back, and I am prepared to do something about it, Torres said in the statement. Jewish students have told my office that they feel completely abandoned by their university administrators, and they view Congress as the only avenue for accountability and safety. Let's honor our word to them and get this done, unquote. It's unbelievable. Anybody advocating for this is your enemy. It's that simple. They're the enemy of freedom, they're the enemy of the Constitution, and they want to criminalize criticism. Think about that. Think about the weight of that. College and university campuses, as you've heard me say already, are bastions for Bolshevism because they already have in them, as separate from their human resources department, they have entire departments dedicated to fielding anonymous complaints about students, staff members, whomever, from anybody who's out there. Any student or professor who wants to make something up about somebody else, they can. And the individual is investigated to the bone. They get an email in their inbox. It says, you're being investigated for this, even though said thing probably never happened. and then you get yanked into a meeting where you have to defend yourself against something that's pretend. This already happens on college and university campuses. Now they're just creating one that's specific to individuals who happen to be Jewish. This is ridiculous. And this is remarkably destructive. Again, this should not pass. No one should vote for this. It's completely ridiculous. Okay, moving on. Again, same road here, same highway. Here we go. This is from the Columbus Dispatch. This is absolutely hilarious because, again, you talk about the media trying to ramp things up in a particular direction just to stir the pot even more. Again, who runs the newspapers in our country? I think we know. This was titled, "Why Are College Students Protesting?" Ohio State, Miami University join Gaza protests. And they've got some footage with a few hundred students standing around, maybe 1,000 at the most. It's just, it's outrageous. And again, they're not hitting anybody. There's no violence. There's just people standing around. A couple of dummies, waving the Star of Remphan flag, and other dummies waving the Palestinian flag and whatever else. People still wearing masks. God knows why, because they're brainwashed. Anyway, it goes on here. It says, New York University, Columbia University, and other colleges across the nation have been in the headlines in recent days amid student demonstrations protesting the Israel-Hamas war, resulting in campus closures and student arrests. Ohio's major campuses are following suit. Again, they're stoking the flames. They're trying to get everybody involved in this. It says Ohio State University students joined the protest this week. 2 were arrested Tuesday and charged with misdemeanor criminal trespassing during an on-campus demonstration. Okay, see, now you're trespassing if you walk around or stand on a college campus and you have a message that you're delivering. Well, people want you to leave and you're not leaving, so that's trespass. But if you were standing there any other day of the year, you wouldn't be arrested for trespass. It's nuts. It says about 60 individuals had gathered at Mealing Hall, a classroom and administrative building near the Wexner Medical Center, yes, that Les Wexner, to protest the Israel-Hamas war. 60 students. Geez, what a huge turnout. Again. Now listen to this from Miami University. It says on April 19th, Miami University SJP chapter organized a walkout in which more than 15 students participated in support of the protesters who were arrested at Columbia. Oh, 15 students. The point you've made. It's so pathetic. They don't even know how to protest properly. They don't even know what they're doing. Again, you can imagine these dummies getting in a room and agreeing on something like this, can't you? You can see them all doing it. Okay, everybody, here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow, we're going to all walk out of class, and we're going to meet at the exact same time, and it's going to be 15 of us, and that'll show them. And then we'll get up and we'll walk out, and we'll go over here to this place, and we'll wave our flags, and that'll keep, kids in Palestine from being bombed on. It's not accomplishing anything. You're accomplishing nothing. And you're both being used. All sides of this, as I've said, everybody's just getting used. And you're advocating for your own erosion of rights on a constant basis. And we can't forget about USC, of course. USC has canceled its graduation amid security concerns over pro-Palestinian protests. And that headline was from the Gateway Pundit. So again, Gateway Pundit, do you support USC? Do you support these universities now? What's your stance on all of this? It's beyond hypocritical, and it's not going to stop. But please, ladies and gentlemen, understand, as I move on here to another subject, all of this was scripted. All of it was on purpose. It stretches all the way back from the October 7th false flag, right through the congressional hearings, right through going after a number of different presidents at all of these universities, keeping in mind they never went after the people who were doxing students who happened to be of Middle Eastern descent or Palestinian descent. Remember all those video trucks going around campuses? No one ever stopped the trucks. No one ever asked who was driving the trucks, who paid for the trucks. Nobody's asking those questions because they're all Jewish. And now, of course, you have all the useful idiots just gathering on college campuses all over the place and waving a flag and shouting at somebody to, change something. Give me a break. Give me a break. Again, everybody knows that the Israeli government over there is slaughtering people. We know this. We are aware. I mean, this has been going on for a very long time. Are you just now figuring this out on your college campuses? You're a little late to the party, frankly. Okay, enough of that subject for now. Moving on. K-12 stuff. And wow, were there some shenanigans happening in American K-12 schools this past week? This first one comes from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Cicely sent this my way. It was a drag queen, a man, dressed as a woman, sliding around on the floor at a senior prom. And thankfully, the principal of the building has been removed and fired, and at least 4 other employees have now been placed on leave. It says after the raunchy drag performance at the prom left parents outraged. Again, it's like clockwork. Every year there are prom-related stories. Every single year. Doesn't matter what they are. It could be the prom night dumpster baby. It could be, Jamal shot Shaniqua because she, was cheating on him. Whatever it may be. Either way, in this day and age, it's drag queens. I mean, it's just the flavor of the month. It's the flavor of the last couple of years. And this particular drag queen apparently also works, not surprising, works for the school's Gay Straight Alliance. Well, there you have it. At least someone got fired over it. That's good. Fire them all. Fire everybody who knew that this was going to happen. Don't just put some of them on leave or slap the wrists of others. Get rid of all of them. Just get rid of all of them. It's so much easier that way. Speaking of getting rid of somebody, there was also this. This is from The Blaze. Again, my apologies for the reference here, but it is titled, Teacher Punches High School Student, Knocks Him to the Floor Amid Their Fight, Allegedly After Student Used Racial Slur Against Teacher. Here's what it says specifically. It says a 27-year-old substitute teacher repeatedly punched a Las Vegas high school student and knocked him to the hallway floor amid their fight caught on video Thursday. And KLAS TV reported that it occurred after the student allegedly used a racial slur against the teacher. What are the details? Sources told the station that the Clark County School District Police Department is using video recordings inside the Valley High School as evidence. Citing sources, they noted that in its video, that they report that the student used a racial slur against the teacher and that it all allegedly started in a classroom where the teacher asked the student to leave after he used the N-word. A longer raw video of the fight shows the smaller student continually going after and swinging at the larger teacher, even though the teacher easily knocks the student to the floor not once but twice. Other students intervene and the teacher walks away amid a throng of onlookers. It says another raw clip offers a close-up of the teacher knocking the student to the floor for one final time, hovering over him, hitting him in the head, and yelling, "Are you crazy?" After schoolmates bring the student to his feet, the teachers whose shirt is torn open hollers, "You lost your motherfucking mind, boy." But the apparently dazed student hollers what sounds like, "You're going to jail, N-word," at the teacher and actually laughs before a campus security monitor leads the student away. School district police identified the teacher as 27-year-old Raekwon Smith. Smith is charged with battery, resulting in serious bodily harm, assault on a school pupil, and school property vehicle activity, threatening to do bodily harm to a public school student and interfering with a student from attending school, the station said. KLAS said that Smith is being held at the Clark County Detention Center on $9,000 bail and is scheduled to appear in court on Friday. It says the district hired Smith in November and assigned him to the high school, the station said, adding that the police said that the district will remove Smith from the substitute pool and he's no longer eligible to serve as a substitute in the district. Well, no kidding. Again, what happened to sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me? What happened to that? Again, he's 27, he's clearly a novice, and he doesn't understand the basic sociology of the prison environment that is a K-12 school. He apparently doesn't understand that you're always going to have students do whatever they have to do to egg on a particular teacher that they don't like in an effort to get them to physically swing at a minor. And then, of course, they will arrest the adult. In every single case, they will always do it. I had two of them actually that come to mind. I used to have two particular students who wanted desperately to fight me physically, and they wanted me to swing at them. They wanted me to be the first person to swing. All I did was just laugh at them. That's all I did. Every single time, I'd just laugh at them, and then I would kick them out of class. And then they go, make me leave. It's like, I don't have to make you. I don't have to make you do anything. There's a phone at my desk. All I have to do is pick it up, call the resource officer. They come down and they meat hook you out of this classroom. And that's what happened. And then, of course, they would get suspended, and then they would come back to class, and everybody's supposed to just pretend that a teacher, wasn't threatened physically by a student. And then everybody's, again, just supposed to go back to the way that things always are. Again, you expel the student too. Name calling or not, expel the student. He was physically fighting another individual. Again, this used to be an expellable offense in most schools across the nation. If you got in physical fights, then you were expelled. You were kicked out permanently. Go find another place to go to school. But again, the hypocrisy of these K-12 school districts even today is blinding. Listen to this particular statement from the district, probably their superintendent or whoever it is, their PR director. They said, quote, "Violence in any form is unacceptable and goes against the fundamental principles of education and respect. Any altercation between a teacher and a student is thoroughly investigated and appropriate disciplinary action is taken." Well, great. Now, if that were true, the student would be expelled, and any time there's any physical altercation between any students without a teacher involved, well, then they would be expelled too. But that's not what happens. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, no child left behind. That's what that also meant. It wasn't just about test scores back when George Bush was in office. No. It was about making excuses for behavior to keep children in school who don't belong. The unruly. We have to keep the unruly in the environment because ultimately that will turn the entire environment into an unruly environment. And then policy and procedure will be changed over the course of time. No child left behind. That's it. That was the whole plan. It took decades, but here we are. Now, shifting gears slightly, and unfortunately, this hasn't taken decades. This only took a few years, thanks to the shots and all. Of course, the shots aren't being blamed for this one. But an Indiana school here in the Indianapolis area has become the first in the state's history to announce a 4-day school week. Give this audio a listen from their local NBC affiliate in 3, 2, 1.
Students at Vinton Elementary in Lafayette, Indiana will start at 8 in the morning and leave at 3:45 in the afternoon, Monday through Thursday. The school corporation said parents will be able to opt in and stay or opt out and change schools.
We understand and we realize that this isn't for everybody, but for those that it is, welcome. We want you there at Vinton. And for those that, it's not conducive to your schedule, we're going to try to accommodate you as best as we can.
And there are still some unknowns being worked out, including schedules, transportation, and also teacher contracts. The 4-day week will go into effect in August. Well, it's good parents have options to choose from, at least.
Oh, they have options, all right. They certainly have options, but let's examine again why this is happening. Now, we know why this is happening, but let's just review. You don't have many teachers. Most of them are sick. They're dying. They're dead. The well is dry in teacher education because no one with a level head wants to be a school teacher these days. So that's gone. You have less students attending. And you need to keep the lights on as a school district. So by turning the lights off for an entire day out of the week, you basically use the entire 4-day work week as not only a money saver, so they think, but they also use it as a hiring tool because they'll basically again say, hey, look, come to our district. Yes, we're leaking at all the seams and we can't plug the holes fast enough as to why this entire ship is sinking, but please come to our school district because again, we're not those 5-day-a-week school districts. No. We are 3-day weekend, 4-day-a-week in school, and you'll absolutely love it. Of course, the parents who will hate it are the ones who use school as daycare. They're the ones that won't be able to stand it. They'll scream and shout and say, "What am I supposed to do with my kid? I got to work and I got to do this and I got to do that." Figure it out. Figure it out. This is one of those things, again, that it blows me away. What happened with teaching children to be at home by themselves? This must not be a thing anymore in society when it comes to raising children to be adults. And essentially, again, as I've said before, raising adults. What is it that keeps a parent from looking at their child? Certainly most children, the ones who aren't handicapped and, of course, in need of monitoring on a constant basis. But with them aside momentarily, what happened to the vast majority of parents and children? When the parents would look at the child and say, okay, we're leaving for X amount of time, not weeks or days or anything like that, but we're leaving for hours here. Stay in the house. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, but you can't do this. And if the doorbell rings, don't answer the door. Keep the doors locked. Don't let the dog out. A number of other things. I mean, what happened to that? Are they incapable of teaching their children particular things these days? Is government the only parent that exists? I don't know. It blows me away. But we know that they're using the school system as daycare. Here's what the article also says. It says in total, for this school district, it means that the students themselves will be in session, or school will be in session, for 151 days, with more than 64,000 minutes of instruction. WTHR reported that more than 10,000 minutes, that equates to, rather, 10,000 minutes above Indiana's minimum requirement. This is quite the admission, too. They're openly telling people that children are in K12 brick-and-mortar schools, government brainwashing institutions, longer than they have to be by law. 64,000 minutes of instruction per year for 151 days is still 10,000 minutes above the state's minimum requirement. It's government kidnapping. It's amazing. It's amazing that people don't look into this. It says parents are being urged to attend one of a series of informational meetings about the change. The announcement has been met with both praise and criticism, of course, with some on Facebook supporting the decision to offer parents choices, quote unquote, and others questioning the potential impact on children who rely on school days for basic needs like food. No, that's not it. They're using them as a daycare facility, because parents typically use government and free government facilities for their children as daycare. That's what this amounts to. But again, this also doesn't just have to do with the illusion of choice, I should say, among the actual school district themselves. As you've heard me say before, school choice and options within their own district are not what districts like. They don't want to do this, but they're not going to tell people why they're really doing this. They're going insolvent. They don't have the students, they don't have the teachers, and they're broke. That's why. And one decision and one particular phenomenon has led to the other, which has led to the other, and all of these individuals are downstream from all of these global, quote-unquote, decisions that have been made to completely flatten the business, and they have no clue. Not a clue. Now listen to their justification, because this is hilarious. They said, quote, and this is directly from the associate superintendent, the one that you heard in the audio there. She said, quote, people implement 4-day work weeks for various reasons, but for us here at Lafayette School Corporation, it was more about offering a choice. No, that's not it. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. Just out of nowhere, they want people to believe that they just made this random decision to shorten the week because, well, it offers up more choices. It actually creates more chaos for them. And certainly for the parents who rely on these individuals and these institutions, rather, to babysit their kids all day long. It also says here in the article that the debate over the 4-day school week is nothing new. It says in 2010, Illinois lawmakers pushed to give local school boards the option to shrink the school week to 4 days, but not everyone is happy about it. In 2018, a Colorado school district implemented a 4-day school week and canceled school on Mondays to save money. There's a hint right there. There you go. The article wraps up here and it says 27 J schools was the largest district to make the change, and at the end of the experiment's first year, kids and parents have relished having 3-day weekends while parents worried about childcare for younger students and unstructured free time for older ones, unquote. Honestly, again, does no one parent anymore? Are they incapable of parenting? Are they incapable of looking at their children and saying, do this, don't do this? Read this book. Write this paper about this book that I want you to read. You're going to do this. You're not going to leave the house. You're just going to do this. I mean, honest to God. What are we going to do without government? Government's supposed to raise my kid. You don't want me to raise my kid, do you? I thought that was government's job. What is wrong with people? What is happening? Here's a nice transition. Speaking of whack jobs, in the last episode, you heard me bring up certainly ask the question, what is the name that we can give to the mentally ill who don't know that they're mentally ill and then push their mental illness on everybody else in society like it's normal, just like all of the rainbow flag wearing loonies that are out there and everybody else. But what is it that is actually called? Does that actually have a name? Well, fortunately, we might have a hint here. One of our listeners of the show, our Virginia professor friend, who remains anonymous momentarily but won't in the near future, they sent me this. They sent me the definition of a word that is apparently in DSM-5, which they aptly pointed out that it's the very whack jobs themselves that write DSM-5, and I completely agree with them. But they wrote this, and they pointed me to a word in there, apparently it's in there anyway, that is titled, and I hope I'm getting this correctly, it's called Anosognosia. Anosognosia. It is apparently, quote, a condition where your brain can't recognize one or more other health conditions you have. It's extremely common with mental health conditions like schizophrenia and Alzheimer's disease. It says the condition isn't dangerous on its own, but people with it are much more likely to avoid or resist treatment for their other health conditions, unquote. No doubt about it. It certainly, this is hilarious. It certainly seems like it's also denial. There's no doubt about that. And certainly brainwashed. Because a brainwashed individual doesn't know that they're brainwashed until they realize that they're brainwashed by being exposed to something that counters the actual thing that they believe to be real when in fact it isn't. If you can prove a truth to an individual, again, who grows up believing something that isn't real, they come to the realization, hopefully, that they in fact have been brainwashed, which means, well, you've been brainwashed. So if you're pushing the very thing that you think is real that isn't, and you don't want to acknowledge the fact that the thing that you're pushing is in fact its own brainwashing mental illness of sorts, then I personally think that this definition fits perfectly. It seems to anyway. Again, we've all been brainwashed. We've all grown up being told particular things that are real, and then we come to the realization that they are not real. And again, most individuals, when they realize that they've been lied to, they don't like liars, and they don't like lying, which means they start to uncover other things that they've been lied to about. But the people who don't want to do that, yes, it's certainly denial, there's no doubt about it, but is there a deeper problem? Possibly, sure. Again, it proves that individuals are brainwashed when they don't want to recognize that they've been brainwashed and, of course, learn what they've been brainwashed about and what subjects they've been lied to about. And of course, we know that one of those subjects has to do with the shots. This is one of those constant things where, again, either an individual wants to learn about what's really going on or they don't. Well, why wouldn't they? Because they participated in an action that stemmed from their own brainwashing and their own coercion and their own being misled by, of course, society as a whole. And with that said, let me move on to jab stuff here. This was from Zero Hedge this past week, and it was titled Excess Deaths in Japan Hit 115,000 Following the Third COVID Shot. New study explains why. It says a new study on harms resulting from the COVID vaccine was published on April 8th in the US-based peer-reviewed medical science journal Curious. I'm saying that right? It represents the largest study to date on adverse effects of the COVID vaccine, and the results are shocking, to put it mildly. It says in the study titled Increased Age-Adjusted Cancer Mortality After the Third mRNA Lipid Nanoparticle Vaccine Dose During COVID-19 Pandemic in Japan, quote-unquote, 5 Japanese scientists used an entire data set of the country's 123 million population. Japan has the highest vaccination rate in the world, it says, to study excess cancer mortalities coinciding with mass COVID vaccination. The authors also provide a sound explanation as to why these deaths occurred after the mRNA injection. It says the study shows that there were 1,568,961 total deaths in Japan in 2022. About 1,453,162 deaths were expected based on statistical predictions using pre-pandemic information, which means that there were 115,799 excess deaths in 2022. It says of those deaths, age-adjusted excess numbers of deaths in 2022 occurred after 2/3 of the Japanese population had received the third dose of the COVID vaccine. Based on Japan's Ministry of Health data, I calculated that there were 39,060 COVID deaths reported in 2022. So the majority of Japan's excess deaths in 2022 were not caused by COVID infection, but rather are strongly associated with the vaccination. Yes. And of course, hospital protocol we have to assume, and we have to assume that it was the same over there as it was here. But perhaps not. Who's to know? It goes on, it says harm done by the vaccine, not the virus. The study shows that in 2020, after COVID-19 began to spread in Japan, but before vaccination was available, the age-adjusted number of deaths was 28,000 fewer than what was predicted. And in 2021, as the virus continued, there was no virus, and there was limited COVID-19 vaccination, it started in February, there were 25,000 more deaths than what was predicted. Based on the number of excess deaths in 2022, the Japanese scientists concluded, quote, statistically significant increases in age-adjusted mortality rates of all cancer and some specific types of cancer, namely ovarian cancer, leukemia, prostate, lip, oral, and pharyngeal, pancreatic, and breast cancers were observed in 2022 after 2/3 of the Japanese population had received the third or later dose of SARS-CoV-2 mRNA LNP vaccine. It says these particularly marked increases in mortality rates of these ERA-sensitive cancers may be attributed to several mechanisms of the mRNA LNP vaccination rather than COVID-19 infection itself, or reduced cancer care due to the lockdown, the authors wrote. In plain English, this study revealed the mRNA COVID jab is likely the cause of the excess deaths that occurred in Japan, unquote. No kidding. No kidding. Kind of a Captain Obvious study there. We can see it. We're hearing it. We know that this is the case. It's not surprising. With that said, let me play some audio here. This is from Dr. William Mackis's Substack page, and this audio was kind of bouncing around last week, certainly toward the end of last week. But I wanted to play some of it here. And this is a medical coder during the whole COVID pandemic, kill shot rollout and everything else that was happening in the hospitals at that time. I'm going to play the last 7 minutes of her talking about, again, some of the things that she witnessed and some of the things that she saw. Again, the whole thing is 27 minutes long. And again, it's free, and you can watch the whole 27 minutes over on his Substack page. But give this a listen if you would, and then I'll bounce at the end with just a few parting comments. So here we go.
What about vaccine injury, the ones that actually took the shots? What did you see there?
Massive. I didn't know it was possible for a human to die so horrifically and so quickly before they rolled out the mRNA injections. It was insane. I've never seen anything like that. The worst of them were the ones, they called it sepsis, but it was like instant multi-organ failure. Like within hours, patients would die of liver, lung, kidney, all at once failure, respiratory failure. It was like some of the records, the emergency crew that found them, it's like their body tried to reject everything. And some of these cases, like their family would be there 30 minutes before, and then within an hour, they're dead. And then there were patients coming in with seizures like I've never seen before. We couldn't control some of them. Days, patients would be seizing, and no medications would stop it. And eventually they kind of had to be put down. They called it encephalitis or encephalopathy. And then later on, even the coding information organization, AHIMA, admitted COVID-19 associated encephalitis. There were blood clots, strokes. The clots were insane. Never seen clots like that before. Even the interventional radiologists that were going in with, they have angiopathies and, different scopes where they can do like heart interventions and put stents in like a carotid artery if you have a stroke going to your brain. Normally it's rare to have more than one stent go in. And they were documenting, multiple locations all at once. They had heart attack cases that were like that, where they needed massive amounts of stents that they never needed before. There were people in their 20s that had been hiking that were totally healthy, had been running marathons, that suddenly needed a leg amputated because they had a massive blood clot going from their hip all the way down to their leg, and it couldn't be saved. So that happened. There were some cases of overnight spinal gangrene, which I've never seen before. And you can't amputate, the spine when it goes gangrenous. Normally they cut out tissue that's dying like that, so it prevents further infection. And they didn't know what to do. The only thing they could do was, basically replace that part of your spine with an implant. That's the best they could do. It was really intense. And I didn't question the vaccines as much as I should have. I started to about the flu shot way back in 2004. But with the pressure to get the COVID-19 shot, I started looking into what it could do. And I knew I didn't want anything to do with this experimental mRNA thing. And when I started looking into the experts that were saying, well, this is what this potential vaccine could do, this is what the research says, I was looking at the vaccine trials and what was happening to those patients, and the Guillain-Barré that was happening, and the strokes that were happening. And so I kind of knew to look for that when the vaccine came out. And the doctors were, baffled. They weren't connecting the dots. But to me, knowing what the potential causes or potential symptoms of a vaccine injury could be, we 100% had all the things that I just described. But doctors would never tell you that. They would just say it's a stroke, it's a heart attack, it's a blood clot, and they would never connect the two.
Is there anything that would make you take a vaccination of any kind ever again?
They would have to kill me. Nothing would make me take it. Not any more kinds.
Did you
No
get
more
COVID?
vaccines. Nope, I've never had COVID.
Flu or whatever.
No, I had a cold once in 4 years. I call it a cold because it felt just like a cold. I didn't have like I lost my sense of smell. It felt just, I wasn't even really down that bad. I just, got the sniffles for a couple days. Really, it wasn't that bad. But I take zinc and vitamin C and glutathione every day, and I eat clean. Try and take care of myself. So,
Is there anything else you want to add to the story? Anything else you want to say?
I don't know.
Would you take someone you love into hospital?
No, not any. I mean, that's a really hard question because I want to say 100% no, but there are some exceptions where, if you have a massive injury where your arm's broken, like a holistic doctor isn't going to be able to set it in the same way depending on what kind of a break it is. They might not be able to do the diagnostics, but them coming at me with a needle of any kind, I don't really trust it. I don't trust PCR tests. I'm not going to let a doctor try and diagnose me based on that. I would have to know the doctor or the care team, that hospital. Like, I would have to vet them. And my dad's, probably going to need care soon. So I'm working as best I can to try and keep him at home.
Are you employed again?
No, I have not worked in 3 years. I have tried not to go back into healthcare because I knew I wasn't going to get an exemption. And I'm kind of trying to go back into it now, and they're still requiring. It even says right in some of the job descriptions that COVID-19 is still going to be required, and there are very limited exemptions allowed, and then all the other vaccines are still required. So probably not a good chance that I would get a job in healthcare if that's part of it.
I'm going to stop it right there. It's absolutely amazing to me the number of people who have no idea that this is happening. Every single time that I listen to these testimonies of these individuals, and again, what they experienced and what they went through, I can't help but think of the percentage, whatever percentage that is, of human society that has no idea that this is even going on. Not only that it went on in the past, but that it's still happening today. I mean, again, you heard her at the end openly say, these hospitals are still requiring their employees to take the shots, that if you're a new employee, you're still required to take these shots, that some of them don't even take exemptions anymore. This is still happening. This is still going on. Absolutely wild. And again, I mean, if you sit long enough with it, it's remarkably overwhelming. Just the number of people who have no flipping clue that this is taking place. I'm going to end it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening as always, and I will catch you on Wednesday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.